Welcome to another episode of Investies. I'm your host, Linda Garcia, and this week on the podcast, we are going to discuss the stock market's ability to predict a president on an election year. But before we get into that, I just want to give a huge shout out to our latest Patreon contributor, Boss Lady Veras. On behalf of myself and the entire team, thank you so much for your contribution. We appreciate you. If you're enjoying Investies and you'd like to make a $3 contribution in support of our efforts, please head over to patreon.com/investies. I find the market's predictive capabilities so fascinating. We've talked about its predictions throughout the entire journey of Investies. The most recent prediction we discussed was the Santa Claus rally. Let me refresh your memory on the Santa Claus rally. The prediction goes like this. If the stock market increases in value in the last 5 days of December and in the first 2 days of January, then this means that we will see an increase in the stock market for the incoming year. Unfortunately, we did not see a Santa Claus rally at the end of 2023 and at the beginning of 2024. So based solely on this prediction, then we should see a negative year in the stock market for 2024. However, the stock market does not agree. Since the start of the year, we have already seen a 9.5% increase in the S&P 500. And I just want to take a moment here because we are in March and we've already seen a 9.5% increase in the stock market. Meanwhile, the majority of us are dependent, if we're lucky enough, on a 401k that gets anywhere from 5 to 8% on average return a year. We are terrified to invest in the market. And this is a collection of stocks. The S&P 500 is the grouping of 500 companies in the United States of America. If we start to look at individual stocks and how much growth they have had year to date, you will be shocked at comparing that growth with the growth in our retirement accounts. I digress. I got sidetracked from the topic at hand, but I just can't help it. When we start to look at percentage increases, I do find it important to compare how our other investments are doing. This is going to be your reminder to make sure to compare the increases on your return on an investment. All right, so getting back on track here with the topic at hand, we did not have a Santa Claus rally into 2024, which again predicts that for the year 2024, we should have a down market. However, I do think it's important for us to go back to what was taking place in December. Despite not having an actual Santa Claus rally on a specific date, we were seeing an incredible amount of growth in the first 2 to 3 weeks of December. It wasn't until the last week in December where we saw the market pull back. Could that mean that we had an early Santa Claus rally? I think so, and I feel like the market agrees. One of the other things that we were discussing back in December was how this is an election year. And historically, in election years, we tend to have a positive stock market. Now, when we have an election year coupled with a presidential incumbent on the ballot, then we tend to have an even more positive year. And so far, the stock market is in agreement with that. So aside from all of these other indicators and predictors that we have in the stock market of what the future is supposed to look like based on current data that we're collecting now, the stock market also has the ability to identify who will be president on an election year. It has been 100% accurate since 1984. And if we extend this, looking back all the way to 1928, then we have seen an 87% success rate. Here's how the actual prediction works. If the first 3 months before an election, meaning August, September, and October, are positive months, then we will see the current president win the election. If those 3 months are on a downturn, if they are negative, then we will see the current president lose the election. The stock market has always been forward-looking, and so it is always quantifying and predicting what will take place in the future and pricing that in today. The stock market does not like change, and it does not like unpredictability, which makes sense on why, if there is an incumbent on the ballot, the stock market behaves positive. However, let's not confuse the prediction of a stock market being positive with an incumbent on the ballot, meaning that the incumbent will remain president. Right now, we are seeing the effects of an incumbent on the ballot. The 9.5% increase is a demonstration of that positive effect. It is an election year, and we have an incumbent. We must wait for August, September, and October to predict whether or not Biden will remain in office. I also wanted to share that, contrary to popular belief, history has taught us that when Democrats are in office, the stock market performs much stronger, versus when Republicans are in office, the stock market is weaker. But honestly, what difference does it make that the stock market performs better when Democrats are in office? If the majority of marginalized community members are Democrat and yet not given the resources and the tools to begin participating in the market. This just sounds like a win-win for Republicans to me. However, it doesn't have to stay this way. As I move through the political arena and I begin to learn about impact on a local level, I get inspired by the collective changes that we can make. I do think that there's this educational component that needs to be disseminated into our communities. There isn't enough understanding of how the system works. We always tend to focus on the bigger picture, which is a general election. But again, as I move through this process, I understand firsthand what it means to make change locally through the primary election. As the Democratic nominee for Texas State Representative, I am pledging my integrity on how I move through this process, and I promise to be transparent, something that I think we are lacking. For more information on my campaign, head over to lindafortexas.com. Any contribution towards the campaign is greatly appreciated. You're listening to Investies. I'm your host, Linda Garcia. Investies podcast is a Cosmic Standard and In Loose We Trust production. A special thank you to the team, Asia Simpson, Eliza Smith, and Jacob Winnick.